learn to improve conversions and generate more leads with the video podcast at marketingoptimization.tv. Hi, and welcome to Marketing Optimization with Alex Designs. I'm your host, Alex Harris, and today we're chatting with Nick Loper. How you doing, Nick?
Excellent. How are you?
Excellent. Today we're talking about a variety of things, but Nick is from the website sidehustlenation.com, and he helps people, and in his own experience, go from the corporate experience to eventually making that leap into the solopreneur. Because thinking about where you're going in your future, it can be hard to really figure out how to get that additional income stream. So Nick, let's just jump right into it. What would be some of your top tips to set yourself up as a side hustle entrepreneur?
Well, my experience or my background was in affiliate marketing, so that was my first side hustle, and it took probably 3 years before I was comfortable quitting my job. And maybe a little bit more conservative, a little bit more risk averse than it probably needed to be. But there's a ton of different things you can do, and that's kind of the fun of being the chief side hustler. I say my job title is today. Experimenting with building online courses, doing some freelancing stuff, doing some Kindle publishing stuff, all sorts of different things, and still trying to do the affiliate marketing thing on the side, and kind of sharing the results of all of this and seeing what works, what doesn't.
Yeah, because there is so many different ways for you to create additional income streams. If affiliate marketing, freelance web design, which what I did, and now a new venture that you're trying right now is to create ebooks through Kindle and the Amazon store. Give us a little bit of overview of that initial process of how you created or the strategy that you created that Kindle book with.
So I started my journey as a professional author. I started 2 years ago, 2 summers ago. I wrote a book on hiring virtual assistants. Oh. And this was essentially to build authority around the topic of outsourcing. Like, I had a website on the topic at the time, and the site was due for a redesign. It looked pretty crappy, but rather than investing in that, I thought, well, maybe if I write a book, if people will be like, oh, I should trust him. He wrote the book on the subject. He knows what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. And I think it had that effect. But the surprising thing was that, and I was like, if it sells any copies, great. If not, that's okay. It's more of a business card to hand people. But it did go on in the 2 years since then. It's kind of sold a pretty steady stream of copies on Amazon, and most of the people surprisingly come through Amazon's own ecosystem rather than through my own site. And so that's kind of a little bit of a light bulb moment that Amazon is like, it's a giant search engine, except it's better than Google because there's a million verified credit card accounts to it, or 100 million verified credit card accounts to it. And so since then, I've written 3 more titles, and none of them have gone on to set any bestseller records or anything. But a recent one has done pretty well. And the funny thing about this is I had no special authority or expertise to write this book. What it was is a curated list of people's favorite online resources. Mm-hmm. And I grabbed the majority of them from the Entrepreneur on Fire show notes archives. My initial idea was this was going to make a viral blog post. Like, this is going to be the greatest blog post ever. People are going to share it. It's going to be awesome. And 5,000 words, 10,000 words deep, I was like, okay, this is much bigger than just a blog post. So that's when it turned into a book, and I kind of did my own outreach. I asked you for your favorite internet resources, and you could kind of compile them all together into this book, and that kind of resonated with a lot of people because everyone's curious about what tools are people using, that joy of discovery.
Yeah, and it had some great success in his first couple of weeks because you had a planned strategy, you got feedback, and you purposely put it for free, initially for the first couple of days. I'm really curious about this because I'm actually working on an ebook right now specifically about e-commerce, and I just happened to come across a great blog post that referenced how you received 20,000 free downloads from this Kindle ebook within just a couple weeks.
Yeah, so you're allowed to promote your book for free for 5 days when you give Amazon exclusive distribution rights. Mm-hmm. And so I said, okay, I'll give it away for free for 5 days with the purpose, I guess, with a couple goals in mind. There's a couple, bonus opt-in offers within the book to generate email subscribers. And the second goal is like, hey, if you can pump up the rank and get enough reviews and downloads for this book, maybe it'll go on to sell on its own afterwards. Maybe this could be a passive income side hustle of its own.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to report that so far so good. It's actually done pretty well in the couple months since it's launched.
So through my research, I found that there's a few different ways to actually create the book. So let's go through. I know a lot of people probably have a desire, or it's on their bucket list, to create a book, and they probably have some ideas of, I have to write this whole thing, and then I have to get it published, and I have to put it maybe through CreateSpace. So what are the options really to initially get the book into Amazon?
Well, they make it so easy. Like it's completely free to publish a title, and so that was the initial authority builder. It's like, hey, you got a book with your name on it and it's for sale on Amazon. That still holds a little bit of a cachet, but people behind the scenes maybe don't realize that, like, any Joe Schmo off the street can essentially put a book up there. There's a little bit of formatting and stuff to consider. And I've made some mistakes. I think my first title, all of the images in the book were missing, and you got to emulate it on their little emulator software, and all the different Kindle hardware versions. So that part is a little bit of a challenge. But the actually, creating the book is just a matter of setting down, and dedicating the time to write it. And so what Steve Scott has done, where this post was originally shared, is just first thing in the morning, I'm going to bang out 2,000 words. I don't care if they're good, bad, or indifferent. I need to get pen on paper or cursor on word processor for 2,000 words in the morning, and that's something I really, really struggle with. The idea, like, I have a hard time going into rough draft mode.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're the same way, but like I want to like edit as I go along, and like I'll I don't know. I have a really hard time with that. So my kind of daily writing goal is like 500 words. That's a little more realistic for me.
Totally. Yeah. So obviously you need to write a book, write the book somehow, however you do it. Actually, the way I've actually created my initial rough draft, and the way I did it is I actually created the outline of the entire thing, and then I spoke to it through my audio recorder in my H4n, and I went through almost like I was reading the book for myself and giving tips along the way, and then I actually had it transcribed. So, and that was actually my way of creating my initial draft. And now I'm going through and trying to, add a little bit more meat to it and organize it in the right way before I maybe get it edited. So now that once the book is actually, in rough draft form, what type of tools do you use to kind of get it set up for the Kindle or the Amazon process?
So the first thing, or I guess two different ways. We'll talk about Kindle first and then CreateSpace second.
Okay.
So for Kindle, you need to save it as a filtered HTML file, which is just like under the Save As menu or Save As file type in Word, and then you'll download the Kindle Previewer software. It's just free desktop software that allows you to see what it's going to look like on all of they've got like 6 different hardware devices, ranging from the first Kindle that was $400 when it first came out and it's all like black and white and ugly, all the way up to like the Kindle Fire HD 10.0 or whatever they're up to now.
Yeah.
and basically the idea is to make sure that everything looks okay. It doesn't have to be professionally formatted or anything, but people have a certain expectation when they're paying for a book, even if it's downloaded for free. Hey, this is coming from Amazon, it's coming from a reputable source, so it's got to look okay as they're flipping through it. And then for CreateSpace is 10 times easier because it's just what you see is what you get. You upload your Word file, they'll spit it back out with all of the file size or page size adjustments, and then you can go through and make sure like all the page breaks look okay. And if you've got like a one sentence dangler or something, you can push it to the next page. So it's way easier.
Okay, just a couple stupid questions. Obviously, I haven't published a book yet, but in my potential ebook, I may want to include images or examples or screenshots. Is that easy to do with a Kindle, or is that just not a good approach to do it?
Images are definitely doable. I just try and make sure to center them and don't mess around with any like text alignment. So center them on their own line, and they'll probably be okay.
Oh, okay. Okay, great. And so now you have the book kind of set up to be published, and you just release to Amazon through CreateSpace?
Yeah, so what I've done, and I don't know if there's a more efficient way to do this, I'll launch on Kindle first, and then I'll add in the CreateSpace version just for the sake, again, almost as a marketing trick, because like, oh, now it's not just some ebook that somebody slapped together, there's actually a paperback version. I think that adds a degree of legitimacy. And from a pricing standpoint, or a kind of a psychology hack, it's like if the Kindle version is $2.99 or $4.99, and the paperback version is $9.99, it makes the Kindle version, which that was the main goal, was to sell the ebook version.
Yeah.
Makes that look like a comparatively better deal.
And in your book, are you adding specific ways for them to maybe visit your site? Is there call to actions? Maybe email opt-ins. I know some people do that. You drive people to your site from inside the book as well.
With the latest title, with the Work Smarter book, that was definitely a goal of mine. And so, in the beginning, kind of at the very beginning, hey, here's a free bonus offer. And for the title, it was something like, 53 takeaways for the world's best business books. So it wasn't something necessarily like side hustle specific, but since I wanted something that would have maybe a broader appeal. And so that was an asset I actually already had created, so I didn't take any extra time. I just had to build a landing page or opt-in form for it. And I think I included that same call to action kind of in context in the middle of the book. So one of the resources that somebody had mentioned was like, executivebooksummaries.com or something. And so that was a natural place to be like, oh, by the way, if you want, my take on my favorite business books, here's where you can get it for free. And then, one final call to action at the very end. Hey, if you like this, here's an exclusive bonus offer for people who downloaded the book.
Yeah, that's actually a good approach. I noticed in Jeff Walker's new book, he has call to actions at the end of a certain context. If you want to see a case study about this particular thing, visit this URL, and it encourages you to go over there and you watch some of his videos, maybe opt in a little bit further.
I think that's the biggest advantage of Amazon versus selling on your own platform. So like, the Nathan Barrys of the world, they can sell ebooks for $50 and up, right? That's a price you can't command on Amazon, but the advantage is a much wider reach. Like if you're somebody who doesn't have a gigantic platform of your own to sell to, here's a platform that it's the biggest store in the world, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a big audience of potential readers and potential email subscribers to expose your material to.
Okay, let's talk about some specific tactics, because I know in this particular blog post, and I'll link to it in the show notes, is that you did a lot of research to figure out the right keywords that you wanted to market to, whether it's the title or I guess the positioning in Amazon. How did you figure out the right title to market?
So this is, keyword research, just like you would do for a website, for SEO. There's a tool called Merchant Words, and I think it's just merchantwords.com, that'll help you do that for Amazon search. So if you consider that Amazon in itself is a big search engine and people are, actively looking for solutions to their problems, you can use that to kind of dictate the title of your book. And I think, similar to your H1 or your title tag, that's the most important ranking factor for this thing. And obviously there's some other things that play into it, and sales and reviews and the revenue that it's going to ultimately generate for Amazon. But the title is definitely a relevant thing. So I use Merchant Words to try and tweak with some different things, and I kind of messed this up. I didn't really learn about this, or I didn't really give much weight to it until after I launched. I actually ended up changing the title midweek, and that's why. So the actual title is Work Smarter, 350 plus online resources today's top entrepreneurs use to increase productivity and achieve their goals. And it's a mouthful, but it has a reason. It's like keywords like work smarter ended up being searched a few thousand times a month.
Wow.
It might be some sub brand of Evernote, I'm not really sure. what that was in context to, but it was,
right.
It had good numbers.
Productivity.
Increased productivity was a popular keyword. So I wanted to have that. I wanted to have entrepreneurs in there. What was the first one? The original? Oh, Grow Their Business was the original title, or part of the original subtitle. And that had it was crickets. Like, it had almost no search volume. So I swapped that out for Achieve Goals or Achieve Their Goals. And I don't know. Like, I haven't done any split testing on this, or anything like that. But, in general, if there are more people looking for it, that's a better chance of your book being discovered.
Yeah, well, it's certainly a great tips, and that's certainly a great resource to check out as well. Now let's talk about pricing. I know you thought about how you're going to position the pricing with your Kindle, and then eventually, when it stops being free, eventually a certain price. What's the psychology there, and maybe some ideas for people how they think about their pricing?
Sure. So a couple things. When I was running the free promo, my intention was to sell the book at $2.99, which is the lowest price you can price it at to achieve a 70% royalty on Kindle. Mm-hmm. Below that, they're only giving you 35% of the royalty, and I guess the cap on that is $9.99. So there's a narrow band of what they're kind of forcing everyone to say, this is what an ebook should cost. And that's where they're giving you the lion's share of the profits. My intention was to price at $2.99 post launch, but during the free promo, I put it at $4.99 to give it a higher perceived value. Whether or not this has any merit or not, I'm not sure. But I guess from my perspective, getting a free $5 thing is worth more to me than getting a free $3 thing.
Totally.
And then when transitioning, so it was at $4.99 all week, and then when I was transitioning it into the free promo was over, I put it at 99 cents. Mm-hmm. to, and I guess there's a reason for this, is that, and I don't know if Amazon may eventually change this, but for the time being, there's a brief 3 or 4 hour window after you shut off your free promo that you're going to show up still ranking on all of their free. Their free category listings. Mm-hmm. So by that time, the book had 20,000 downloads. So it was ranked number 1 in business. It was ranked number 1 in time management. Ranked number 1 in a bunch of these categories. And so I wanted to make sure that free exposure was really capitalized on, because a friend explained to me the free rankings and the paid rankings are completely separate. Mm-hmm. So what you need to do right out of the gate is prove that people are willing to pay money for this. And so the natural lowest price point is 99 cents. And so people may still see it on the free list and they say, well, it's not free anymore, but it's only 99 cents. It's got, a few dozen reviews. People seem to like it. I'm going to take my chances. And so that was, I think that really, really helped kind of gain that initial momentum, that initial proof of sales. And that's how it started ranking on the paid charts now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anticipating some of the changes, I think is where I think you benefited the most, because you had a pre-launch strategy and then a launch strategy. Tell us a little bit about how do reviews play into the free strategy, and maybe give us a little bit of summary of unverified versus verified reviews.
Sure. So I guess real briefly, the difference between verified and unverified reviews. Verified reviews is somebody that Amazon can track that purchase back to. Right. And naturally, they understand, for Kindle, if you have the exclusivity on, your book, they're kind of the only game in town. If it's unverified, they don't know if this person read it or not. They don't know if this person bought it or not. Mm-hmm. But for a lot of the other products, they're not the only provider of products, so it probably doesn't weigh as much. And they still want that user-generated content, right? For SEO, for to help their customers, helps with conversion, right? But my theory is for Kindle books, at least, a verified purchase is going to be, it's going to hold a higher weight in their reviews. And so, a free download counts as a verified purchase. If you give somebody a gift card or something, an Amazon gift card, hey, go buy my book, that will count as a verified purchase. Or if they, buy it outright, that's a verified purchase. So what I did, I may have screwed up on this a little bit. I just sent PDF copies to, a handful of people, inner circle people, maybe 25 or 30 people I figured I could count on for a review before it launched. And a couple notes on this. So I made sure to put the book out on Amazon very quietly a few days in advance of what I knew was going to be my big marketing push to try and seed some of those initial reviews. Mm-hmm. Because as an author, you need reviews now. Like you have a very limited window of this free promo period, and the greatest book in the world, even if it's free, if it has 0 reviews, I'm like, it must not be that great, right? And so it's really, really important to kind of seed those initial reviews and give people a couple days at least to have a chance to read the book, or at least page through it and say, okay, this is good. I can comfortably leave a review, because they're a lot of times it's linked to their Amazon account. They're putting their name on the line for you,
right? And
they don't want to recommend crap if it's crap.
And also one of the I think the smart things you did with the pre-launch is that you set up you bought a specific domain name just for the book. That way, when people tweeted it out, the people associated that particular domain that you bought, just that directly to Amazon.
Yeah, and so I linked that to Amazon. I actually linked that through an affiliate link, which may or may not be frowned upon in their terms of service. I'm going to plead ignorance to that one. But the funny thing was, so by the nature of this book, like it was a giant list, it had a ton of contributors, was able to do, this big outreach campaign, both to the people who named resources and all of the companies who were featured, who were named there. And so what I put in that email was like, hey, you were featured in this book. A couple purposes. One was to drive downloads, because once you start ranking on the different Amazon charts, that kind of like is self-perpetuating. But the second purpose was to get people to share it to fuel even more downloads. Mm-hmm. And so I used a click-to-tweet link. It was like, hey, if you think this is a cool project and want to share, just click here to tweet. And you probably should have, maybe you could have gotten more exposure on Facebook than Twitter, but that was what I went with, and included that vanity domain in there. It was worksmarter.co, which redirected to the book page.
Yeah, and then once the book was started to go into regular price, I guess you had your VAs or fancy hands submit your book or the listing to all additional book sites. Can you talk a little bit about that?
There's a handful of sites that specialize in free Kindle promotions, and I guess savvy readers or people who just love a bargain, subscribe to these email lists, subscribe to these Facebook groups, and are on the lookout for interesting titles that come through. And so you could submit to, I don't know what the impact is, because it sounds like it's probably just a bunch of marketers doing it, kind of checking the box, like, okay, this is what I did. But you never know. If you get a few downloads from it, it doesn't take a ton of time and can't hurt you.
Well, it seems like you can write a book specifically just about this, because I mean, once you guys see this blog post, it's lengthy. I actually had to read it a couple of times to really digest all the great information. So let's give some people some maybe some clear takeaways. If you were to do it again from scratch, I would say what would be your biggest benefit and biggest maybe failure, or would you do it again differently?
Well, the biggest benefit is, twofold. Having a best-selling, book to your name, and having a passive income asset that hopefully will continue to earn revenue for, months and hopefully years down the road. I mean, by the nature of this book, I'm already looking forward to, version 2.0, for 2015.
Right.
But it's, there's just some huge value in having a book with having something for sale on the world's largest store. Mm-hmm. So if you haven't written a book yet, I urge you to get one out. It's, they make it so easy to do. Mm-hmm. And, you can follow step by step, steal the process that I used and generate some big download numbers. Yeah.
And if you're listening to this and you want to check out this book or his process, you can visit the domain worksmarter.co. Very, very easy to follow and type in. Well, let's 2 more questions. Let's tell people about your website and your podcast and how people can find out more about you.
Sure. So my role is Chief Side Hustler at sidehustlenation.com, and there's a podcast to go along with it where each week we explore a new side hustle business idea. This week we're talking about selling courses on Udemy. We've had Kindle authors. We've had a guy who ended up buying a house with money he earned on Fiverr. Wow. That's actually that was one of the original episodes and still is the most popular download one. So it's been a ton of fun. If you're into trying to build some non-job income streams, I urge you to check it out. If you just search in iTunes for Side Hustle, it'll show up, or if you visit sidehustlenation.com.
Mm-hmm. And I guess in the last year, you left your corporate job, and now you're a full-time solopreneur. Is that correct?
I've been a full-time side hustler 6 years.
Oh, really?
So I've been semi-retired for a while, or out of corporate for a while.
Oh, okay. My apologies. Well,
no worries.
Well, what would be one thing that you would tell someone who's still working in that corporate job, and maybe they're making a little bit of money on the side, but how can they supplement their income to really take that leap? So
2 things. The first is to try and make progress every day. Mm-hmm. It's a slow. It's a slow process. Somebody described it to me as like the reverse Dave Ramsey. It's like, I'm not trying to, replace my day job, right out of the gate, but maybe I can pay my phone bill with some side hustle. Maybe I can pay my, car insurance with some side hustle, and stuff like that. So kind of the idea, and Jim Collins describes this as the 20-mile march in Great by Choice. Excellent book. And just trying to make a habit of, making some progress every single day. I think that's really valuable. Mm-hmm. And the second is to kind of adopt the experimenter's mindset. And by that, I mean, just looking at things. You think of the scientist in the lab, right? He never really fails, right? His experience either just, proves or disproves his hypothesis. And so that's kind of the attitude I try and take with these different projects, is just, hey, I'm not going to make a bet I can't afford to lose. Mm-hmm. Most importantly, because you don't want to be making any seriously crazy risky bets. Yeah. But just throwing something out there, seeing what works, and then kind of learning from that and moving on to the next thing.
Yeah. That's what optimization is all about.
Exactly.
Experimenting, not taking anything personal, because a lot of times you try a lot of stuff and it loses. But if you can learn from those losses and those failures and continue to iterate, and hopefully you'll turn it into more income.
Exactly.
Excellent. Well, thanks a lot for your time, Nick.
You bet, man. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching the Marketing Optimization Podcast with Alex Designs. Please remember to subscribe to all of the videos in my YouTube channel. Thank you.